Hello everyone. On this channel, I feel that information about what is happening in China is often not correctly conveyed to countries other than China, so I will be disseminating the information I have gathered in English. I'm getting information from multiple media, so I'd be happy if you could comment on the content of the video. Also, English is not my native language, so I use an AI speaker to create the voice to convey the information correctly. If you like it, please subscribe to the channel and support us. This time, I will tell you about the abnormal situation that is occurring in the Chinese bank. It is said that the number of complaints against banks in China has exploded this year. As a background, there are a lot of people who borrow money from banks, mainly mortgages. For example, there are quite a few people who have taken out a 30-year loan and still have 20 years left. There are people who have cash on hand and want to prepay their mortgages, but their banks are blocking prepayments. I'm not saying that they don't blatantly make early repayments, but they don't approve early repayments for various reasons, so complaints to banks are increasing. I would like to introduce the specific means that Chinese banks are using to prevent early repayments. I would like to introduce an article, but the title of this article is "I didn't think it was more difficult to return money than to borrow money." China is in a situation where they have to wait a long time to make early repayments. In Japan, people imagine waiting for hours at a bank window, but in China, when they applied for an early repayment to the bank in October last year, they had to wait until April this year. Banks are doing all kinds of sabotage to prevent early repayment. Internet banking has become common in China, but it seems that the internet procedure has been changed so that the loan cannot be prepaid. In addition, the date on which you can apply for early repayment is fixed. If you don't make a reservation, you can't do the procedure. The current situation in China is that there are various obstacles when trying to actually proceed with early repayment. Moreover, there are cases where you will be charged a penalty if you try to repay early. In one article, it was written that a penalty of 1,300 yuan would be charged even though the 100,000 yuan was paid early. 100,000 yuan is about 2 million yen in Japanese yen. It's about 6,000 yen. There are many articles on the web saying that if you try to pay back the money early, the money will be taken away, and if you pay it off early, you will lose money. Information manipulation is also being carried out to prevent early repayment. So what is this background? Prepaying means you have cash to spare. However, those who can afford it do not have it in cash. A certain amount of money is invested in wealth management products. However, recently in China, there are many people who are in a situation where even if they buy wealth management products, the yield is low, and the mortgage interest rate is higher. This is one of the reasons why prepayment of home loans is spreading, because there is no investment destination that can get more return than the loan interest rate. Another problem is China's real estate prices are falling. There are differences depending on the region, but the worst part is that there are regions that are so dangerous that you don't know how far the price will go down unless the government stops. People who have purchased real estate in such places think that it is bad if they do not sell the condominium now and cash it to pay back the mortgage. If you act quickly, you may be able to pay off the mortgage with the money from selling the apartment, but the sale may end up in the red. For example, if you bought a condominium for 50 million yen and the loan was 40 million yen excluding the down payment, if the price of the house falls below 40 million yen at that time, even if you sell the condominium, the loan will still remain. Isn't it? Therefore, people who live in places where prices are likely to drop in the future want to avoid leaving only debts. These people also want to make early repayments on their mortgages, but what about the bank side? In China, the demand for funds is disappearing, exports are declining, and domestic consumption is sluggish. In other words, there is no demand for borrowing money from banks to make new capital investments. Rather, we have to dispose of accumulated inventory somehow, and the economic situation is that we want to restructure rather than hire people. In such a situation, if a company borrows a lot of money from a bank, there are almost no borrowers. However, banks cannot earn interest unless they lend money. Even if the money is returned to the bank after being advanced in such a situation, there is no way to make a profit. If this was one or two people, there would be no problem, but since the movement of early repayment is spreading throughout China, it is on a scale that affects the management of banks. As a bank, we are trying to postpone repayment by various means so as not to prepay as much as possible. Banks have an image of forcibly collecting the money they have lent, but the essence of a bank is to borrow as long as possible and earn interest all the time. By the way, the most common complaints are those related to personal loans, but the next most common complaints are those related to credit cards. The most common complaint about credit cards is that they are blacklisted. It seems that there are quite a lot of people who have problems and can't get credit cards made. And there are cases where people who have revolving payments are unable to pay the money within the deadline and have to pay penalties and high interest for that, and there seem to be many complaints about it. Furthermore, in the case that the revolving payment by credit card cannot be paid, it is in China to leave the receivable to a debt collection company. The debt collection company is doing the collection in a fairly violent way. Not only the person himself but also his family and relatives are harassed, their lives are disturbed, their privacy is exposed, and other illegal actions are taken to collect their debts. There are many complaints about it, so there are many complaints about credit cards, and banks are interfering with mortgage repayments. I think it's the same in developed countries, but in Japan you can prepay your home loan at any time, and the bank will not interfere to prevent you from prepaying. That's all for now. See you next time.